Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to another episode of Tiff4Tat. I am Tiff,
And I am Tat.
and we are joined today by Erik from RenderDraw. Erik, go ahead and introduce yourself to the listeners.
Hi, everybody. Erik Pilgrim, founder of RenderDraw. Been in the Salesforce space for longer than I can count now, probably about a decade and a half, something along those lines. Founded RenderDraw. It's an ISV solution for quickly being able to achieve visualizations and interactions across the board in Salesforce. A lot of configuration use case scenarios, but then getting into things like spare part scenarios and digital twins after that.
Erik, a lot of people don't know about maybe the first time to hear WenderJaw. Can you give us a little bit about of history or about WenderJaw and how what it is, so that people know what we're talking about?
Yeah. So history of the company, we were founded in 2019, right before the pandemic. Super terrible time to start a company, but we did that. I come from a world of manufacturing, so I used to work for another ISV that focused on Salesforce to SAP integration, specifically a lot of configuration scenarios. So integrating with variant configuration from Salesforce CPQ at the time. And the thing that we kept on hearing over and over again, and what kind of triggered me to start building RenderDraw, was the visualization aspect was extremely important for the manufacturers we were talking to. But there was no scalable solution for that. So the other players in the market basically had their own configurations plus a visualization, but the SAP backend was a requirement. So they didn't want to have multiple configurators. So I just saw this need in the market and decided to fill it. So originally we were just getting started with product visualization with 3D only. Ended up finding out that a lot of the manufacturers out there actually don't have 3D CAD models for everything. So ended up building a 2D platform, and we built this in a scalable way to where it can actually work with anything on Salesforce, right? So not just product visualization, not just configuration, but taking those interactions and then spreading them across all of the different Salesforce clouds. So really flexible. Wanted to make sure we could scale for the tiniest of customers and then going all the way up into enterprise as well.
Awesome. So I'm curious about the scalability aspect of RenderDraw because, of
Yeah.
course, with any visualization, there's a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of computing power required. So I'm curious, what is your approach to make it scalable?
So when we think about scalability, there are a few different, I guess, vectors that we got to think about. The first one is the number of products that you're going to be utilizing, right? So a really bad approach would be kind of the old school methodology of creating or having a custom artist develop a visual for every single product that you have. When you start talking to the larger manufacturers, that is just a non-starter. You can't do spare parts. You can't go in if they have thousands of products, just because the initial implementation and lift is so large. It ends up offsetting the product, which a lot of times, like CPQ, as you all probably have experienced, CPQ implementations typically take a very long time anyway. But then that initial art being developed is really, really slow. And then every time there's a new revision of a product or every time there's a new product introduced, that same revision or that same art creation time is extremely long. So what we did was kind of focus more on the B2B market, not so much B2C, but everybody that has 3D CAD models. We actually developed a pipeline to where we can take those CAD models and then extract the pieces that we don't need out of it, shrink them down to where they can be viewed directly in the browser. So there's no plugins or anything like that. And then utilize those CAD models to relate them to different products or different records inside of Salesforce. So through that pipeline, we made it super administrator friendly. Actually, every customer that we end up talking to, they kind of put off visuals because it seems so daunting. Everybody wants the result, but nobody wants to put the work in for that. So for us, having that pipeline of the drag and drop for an admin to then just link up a visual to a given product record or an asset, super, super streamlined, and it's really scalable for every single use case that's out there. But I guess the nice part of the second vector that I would talk about is that's kind of just getting the initial visualization in. Then when we start talking about like things like configuration or things like digital twin, these same 3D models get to be used using the Salesforce data model across all of those different use cases. So like the
I mean,
relationship.
sorry, I'm just curious. What does that mean, digital twin? What does that mean?
So digital twin in most manufacturing scenarios, we talk about digital twin as a post-sale opportunity. So you all are used to doing the configuration or seeing some product visualization, like you go on a website and you see a 3D dancing pipe or different material from a manufacturer. But after that's been configured and sold, it becomes an asset. So when we think about the asset lifecycle after the sale, typically there are things behind the scenes that need to happen, like creating a work order if somebody has an issue with it, or checking warranty status, or doing some kind of custom work. So digital twin is basically just taking that 3D interaction that we have and the customer's used to from the configuration, and then allowing those custom use cases or those default use cases to be done from an asset perspective.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so that kind of feeds in, if we think about the life cycle of a manufacturer, customer gets interested in buying the product, customer configures product, customer then has the product and either needs some service on it, or they have some spare parts, or they need a field service guide behind the scenes to fix the machine that's out there. We service all of those use cases with the same CAD model. So those are the different vectors that we think about when it comes to scalability. It's not just getting all of the different products inside of Salesforce visualized on a digital experience or in a configurator, but it's actually going beyond the sale. We've got to think about it holistically and then scale that across tens of thousands of products for our enterprise customers, or going down to the smallest customer where we've got 5 users that have just a few products that need visualized. So a lot of different areas that we've got to kind of focus on, but we're scalable because of the Salesforce platform in this case to be able to do that across all the different use cases.
Cool. I just wanted to go back to something that you said earlier. You said that you integrate with or sit on top of multiple different Salesforce clouds.
Yep.
Of course, we can think very easily about configuring products on a quote, but I'm curious about some of the other clouds, or what other kind of generalized common use cases do you see in Salesforce?
Sure. So specialty clouds like manufacturing cloud, the retail and consumer goods cloud, we play well with all of these. And then there are other clouds that are maybe not so specific, like service cloud, where we do a lot of work with like data centers, for instance. But really, when we think about it, it's like an interaction layer that goes on top of the data. When we have a customer that, like Neutrality Data Centers is a great customer of ours, they have lots of different custom objects, but they're in this heavy service cloud workflow, basically going into a data center and then going into the floor plan, and then going into a data hall, and then going into the server room, the server rack, the panel, and then so on. That experience, clicking through links on Salesforce, is not the greatest, but having the ability to navigate those visually by looking at a 2D floor plan and then go through like a 3D rendering of what's going on in the server, extremely valuable. It increases user adoption. So we take that kind of use case and then spread it across all the different other use cases in other clouds, like manufacturing cloud, for instance. Going in and having the ability to take a look at service contracts or warranties based off of a given asset, super valuable. But when we talk about customer and user adoption, most users want that 2025 experience out there when it's on a digital experience or internal inside of Salesforce in manufacturing cloud. So effectively having that rich experience across the board really increases adoption, and then also make sure that any of the features that you're paying for already in Salesforce are actually used across the board for the end customer.
Awesome.
I hear a lot of mentioning of Salesforce, so
Yeah.
I kind of make the assumption that, it works really well with Salesforce. I'm just curious, from, I come from the Oracle world, right? So, I'm curious, does your product, is it only limited to to Salesforce, or can other, quoting tool leverage, your product? And if it does, then what are the different, ways we can integrate with, RenderDraw?
Yeah, good question. So as of today, the filming of this podcast, we are a Salesforce specific utility. We're an ISV app that's available on the App Exchange. And we actually have several packages on the App Exchange for the different use case scenarios. As we start talking about the future of RenderDraw, we've got a pretty intense set of APIs that are available. So when we think about CAD processing, information extraction from CAD models, those are available today to all of our customers, and they're widely used. As we continue to scale, this is a concern that we've heard, or a question we've heard several times, as far as potentially branching away from Salesforce. So we are in the process of addressing those customer needs outside of the Salesforce marketplace as well. But Salesforce will always be our home. Effectively, we'll always have a core Salesforce product that's just going to integrate a little bit more broadly when it comes to the future of RenderDraw and what we're going to be doing as an API-first visualization platform.
So the APIs, are they mostly REST APIs, or what kind of ways we can call those APIs?
Yeah, RESTful APIs, and we are taking care of everything behind the scenes moving forward. So a lot of the concerns that we've heard from customers are things like file storage, right? If we process a CAD model, typically CAD models are huge. So pre-processing the CAD model, it's something along the lines of 300 megabytes or 100 megabytes, something like that. If you scale that up to 10,000 products, storage becomes a concern very quickly.
Yeah.
So our new APIs are all RESTful. They are based around interactions, and then with that, we're taking care of the storage, the finding of the models, and then also the linkage of additional models. So, like when we talk about CPQ, for instance, most of the time a 3D CPQ interaction is going to have lots of different 3D models that are going to be loaded in based off of options that are selected. We handle all of the storage and then all of the interaction of positioning and calling those based off of those RESTful APIs.
So, the way that you integrate with Salesforce right now is, how are you embedded in Salesforce, or do you, have a separate window for the visualization, or is it just embedded on the page itself?
So we are 100% native to Salesforce as far as our current offering is concerned. We have something on the order of 130 LWC components that we actively maintain and utilize across the board. Those are reused across all of the Salesforce platform use cases. So we have specific packages that utilize those components across the board, but they are all native to Salesforce.
Native Salesforce, okay.
Moving forward, we are transitioning using the same web components technologies that Salesforce has, but expanding that so they can be used anywhere. So if somebody has a Shopify website, if they've got Oracle, if they want to utilize Logic on ServiceNow, we have the ability to utilize that same technology moving forward.
So you kind of conform to the is it the component web standard that you guys follow, or is it just a custom or just whatever component Salesforce use?
So yeah, Salesforce kind of uses the base technology is called web components. So it's modern web components, JavaScript. Salesforce has their own flavor of that called Lightning Web Components.
Yeah.
So what we're kind of doing is we went through a big transition of going from Aura components, which is what was originally written. We wrote RenderDraw in. We transitioned already over to LWR, LWC components, LWR enabled LWC components. And with that, we're really event based. So when we think about what happens in a 3D visual, if somebody hovers over something, if somebody clicks on something, or you want something to happen inside of that visual, a lot of events happen between those. So we either need to raise events up or respond to events. So right now in the Salesforce ecosystem, that's a LMS event, a Lightning Messaging Service, that we respond to or we raise based off of the interactions. We're taking those core technologies and that core use case, and then we're bringing it to a broader audience using standard web components.
Yeah.
So with that, yeah, we'll still have the same eventing system, all of the same APIs as far as our functions are concerned, but it's going to be usable outside of the Salesforce ecosystem in the same fashion.
Yeah, that would be great if if we can leverage that. That would be because nowadays everybody wants visualization, so anyway.
Yes, of course. So that's kind of the base. I hate the term, but the base player components where you have the actual visual that the end user consumes. The other layer of this, and this kind of plays into Tiff's question about scalability, but setting up visuals typically is a really heavy coding exercise. And what we've done on the Salesforce ecosystem and are pretty famous for now is our administrative components. So everything that we do is developed down to a Salesforce admin level user. And what that means is we don't expect you to know anything about 3D. You don't need to know about cameras, changing the orientation, changing rotation, or anything like that. effectively, the idea is you drag in a CAD model that your engineering team brings you, and then you're able to set that up based off of the underlying configuration or scenario inside of Salesforce. That same admin functionality we're bringing outside of the Salesforce ecosystem as well. So we're really excited to do that. We're basically the only people that have done this at scale for B2B. And because of that, it's truly self-service after we deliver the initial implementation, or one of our partners delivers the implementation. And it's a really big win for the end customer, because most of the time these visualizations, unfortunately, from competing technologies or just in general, they turn pretty stale pretty quickly. And it's just because the original team that developed whatever visualizations are out there are really, really kind of specific to that technology, and then they're hard to maintain moving forward without contracting with these original people. So
Yeah.
we flipped the paradigm to make sure that the admins can take care of it, or the customer can self-service afterwards.
So let's say that we're doing like a bread and butter implementation of RenderDraw. We're putting it on top of Salesforce. Let's say a quoting system, maybe it's Steelbrick, maybe it's the RCA, doesn't matter. Let's just say it's a CPQ tool.
Okay.
Where would RenderDraw come into play, and what would that UI feel like to the end user?
So Steelbrick CPQ, unfortunately or fortunately, I mean, they kind of paved the way for a lot of these things, right? So they have the ability to create what would be called like the external configuration plugin.
Okay.
Effectively, we would plug in directly with that. We have some pre-built components that are in an unmanaged package for Steelbrick, and that's just because every single configuration is a little bit different, and people like the look and feel to change a bit. Moving forward, kind of forward looking on the Salesforce ecosystem, we are huge Revenue Cloud fans. So RCA, we actually have worked with the RCA product team since probably about a year and a half now, directly with the product team to develop a specific package add-on that is 100% managed, which allows the extension of both our 2D and our 3D platforms. That actually integrates directly with RCA. So RCA kind of works in a unique way where you create the product configuration flow. In the product configuration flow, you actually just drop our RenderDraw component in, and we listen to the native events that happen within RCA. So there's literally no coding that comes with that. We bind ourselves to the data model in RCA as well. So anything that you want set up as far as having a visual event for, we look at the data model and we'll generate the steps for those to be created. And then you just have to plug and play, like changing a color, for instance, using our UI for the admin interface. So much prefer the RCA route of things. It's much more easy, and we like to keep implementations down to a minimum. But really, either way, what we're doing is we call it visual logic. We are listening for an event that's happening from a system like Conga, CPQ, Salesforce CPQ, RCA, any of the other players that are out there. From that, we listen for the events that are raised from the system. This can either be a change in the bill of materials, so overall BOM change from underlying rules behind the scenes, or an input change. And then from that, we respond in a way that updates the user to understand what's actually happening in the configuration. So especially in like B2B and manufacturing, a lot of these configurations can get really sticky as far as the customer doesn't really know or can't envision what's happening behind the scenes or what it's supposed to look like. And that's kind of the power that we're able to drag and drop in and then utilize those CAD models to update a visual for the end user. So completely scalable, but then also goes along with the product model inside of Salesforce to where the visualizations live right alongside the attributes of the product options.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting. Visualization is still, I mean, it has been around for a long time, but it's for to a lot of, on the web and in the selling, it is still pretty new to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, like, what type of, what do you see, like, the future, like, in, for visualization, and then what are the exciting things that you guys are, working on?
The future of visualization is interesting. So the way that we think about this, we can't have this conversation without talking about artificial intelligence, whatever flavor you like of that.
Yeah.
Wait,
basically,
did you say artificial intelligence?
yeah. Have you ever heard of it? It's something new that I think is coming out. It's going to be really big someday.
AI, is that the term I keep hearing?
Yeah.
Is that what that stands for? Oh, okay.
Exactly. Yeah. So AI, it's obviously driving Salesforce's product model and everything that they've got going on, and every other vendor out there. But what we're seeing is AI is kind of driving the interaction, whether it's on sales or service or what have you. Any kind of customer or user interaction seems to be AI first moving forward. That's kind of a given now. But what we're seeing is there is an inherent distrust or a question of whether or not the AI is correct. So as we start thinking about configurations or self-service, getting spare parts or something along those lines, AI is kind of front driving the conversation to where we don't really have to see the clicks inside of a configuration or the making a selection to dive down into an asset hierarchy. The AI kind of gets you there, but what we're seeing is really what I would consider to be like visual validation after the fact. So we've got in a scenario of service, let's say, I've got a machine, the asset is in my account. I'm having a problem with that. Okay, describe the problem. And with that description, AI can get you down to what the asset is and then show you relevant spare parts. But how do you know that that's exactly what you want? If you've got the broken spare part in your hand, you see that visual validation is okay, this is exactly what I need. Let's go ahead and process that order. So the AI interaction is going to be on the forefront of everything. We're obviously strong opinionated and big players in AI. We enjoy the AI, but that validation visually, as long as there's an end user involved, the validation is going to be a requirement. And especially when we start talking about big ticket purchases or really extreme examples of large machines being purchased, AI can probably pre-configure things based off of your use case. For instance, if there's a requirement of like noise insulation or temperature control in a pump scenario or a generator example, we can basically pre-populate the configuration for you, but without seeing it and without understanding what you're actually buying, you're less likely to actually commit to making that big purchase. So that's kind of on the forefront of the interaction. And then the post sale, things like proposal documents that get sent out, basically they're always going to require some visual to be accompanying a large purchase, whether it's server racks, whether it's large pumps, or whether it's generators. Effectively, that quote or proposal that gets sent out to the customer will always have a visual element in it because no one's making big purchases without that. So I think AI enabled interactions are awesome. My team always laughs because I always tell people like rip out a lot of the drop downs, right? Like every configurator you see has 5,000 drop downs, and it's like, take it away. Let's get rid of it. Let's see how many we can remove. So AI is going to reduce that for me. But the visual verification and walkthrough is going to be more like a visual guided selling, if you can think of it that way, where you're guided through the product behind the scenes. The attributes are updating, the product options are being selected, and the quantities are updating. But you don't, as a user, really want to see 10,000 drop downs. You want to see the product that you're buying, because at the end of the day, that's what matters.
Yeah. Now, are you thinking about like use cases of AI where you can configure items based on historical data? Like have
Yes.
like an agent say like, a prompt go, hey, can you look at every time that we've sold this and update XYZ and configure this thing based on all that data?
Yes. So it kind of comes in two folds, right? Like if a customer or an account is buying things over and over again, that's one thing where it's like you guys bought this before. Here were the options you were selected. That would be more like a favorites feature, I guess.
Sure.
But kind of taking that out and extrapolating it out to a company wide, that a company that's selling, the user data or the purchasing data is extremely valuable over time, and utilizing that to make good decisions, and actually giving reason to the customer as to why it's a good decision. Lots of customers are choosing this. Here's why. That's extremely valuable information, because you might have somebody that's configuring something for the first time and might not know the nuances of your products. So kind of walking them through that without hand coding it is extremely valuable. And then leading them through an experience. We like to try and have what would be considered like a white glove treatment when it comes to configuring anything. It doesn't matter if it's the most mechanical industrial equipment. The end customer should still feel like they're special for buying it or as they're being guided through it. And that's kind of where I see AI really augments in the experience, where we're using the data behind the scenes to not have somebody pre-program this or anything like that, but actually give valuable information and then make the customer feel special as they're purchasing something. So I don't know, is this the time where we have questions for you all? I got a
Yeah,
few.
do you have more questions for Erik?
I'm I'm good.
Any follow-ups? Okay, so
No,
Erik,
no.
shoot.
Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
So Tiff, let's talk about Salesforce for a second. Where do we see Salesforce going as far as configuration down the line? What is it going to look like? What's the landscape look like for you in the future? I mean, you're heavily involved inside of Salesforce Revenue Cloud, obviously, but what does that look like in the years to come? What are we thinking about configuration moving forward for the platform?
Yeah, so I would say configuration is coming a long way in Salesforce. Um, So Salesforce is really focused on the manufacturing client now. We've seen a lot of manufacturers in the last few years, I'd say in the last like 3 to 5 years, come onto Salesforce and specifically want quoting inside Salesforce and getting away from SAP or Oracle. Sorry, Tat.
It's
But
okay.
it's really seeing the manufacturers wanting that customer 360 view, right? Like they have their CRM. Why not just use all of that CRM data to funnel into quoting, to funnel into orders, and then at the order level go into their ERP system, right? So I would say because of that shift and because Salesforce is really focused on the manufacturing client now, naturally configuration needs to come up to speed as well. Um, so in the Steelbrick package, configuration was pretty limited, and in order to help manufacturing clients, we needed a third-party app. A lot of times Logic was great inside Steelbrick to accommodate that manufacturing client and get the complex configuration done. Salesforce now has we originally in Revenue Cloud, we originally had a standard configurator and then an advanced configurator, but now it's all one and it has all of the capabilities of that advanced configurator. So it's very flexible. There is an area where a developer can actually code if you need it to be specific and custom. So it can be flexible enough to accommodate many use cases. But there's also an administrative UI, which is point and click, because of course Salesforce is always clicks, not code. So they also give that opportunity as well for non-developer admins setting up configuration. So I would say the future is bright for manufacturers in Salesforce in terms of configuration. Of course, all of this is new and we're getting it all up to speed and it's changing, but Salesforce is very responsive and the product team is really focused on getting this right. And they have a lot of manufacturing clients today, so they have a lot of use cases to consider and a lot of data points to influence their decisions on where it goes. So I'm really excited to see where things go. I think it's going in the right direction for sure.
Yeah, I would concur there. I definitely see what you're talking about as far as kind of what would formerly be considered back of office or back of house, like ERP systems, kind of making their way logically and also data wise onto the platform. But it's interesting to see kind of not only these clouds and the configurators being brought up to surface on Salesforce, but how elegantly it's all kind of tying together based off of it being on the platform. Things just seem to work a lot better, especially when you start removing like heavy integrations in between different systems. It just seems to be unified. It's kind of exciting to see where they're going with it, and they're definitely dealing with it in an elegant way. The jump from Revenue Cloud from Steelbrick has been definitely a breath of fresh air for us.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I will admit, I loved Steelbrick. It did not frustrate me. I loved implementing Steelbrick. Steelbrick will always have a special place in my heart. But I am really excited about Revenue Cloud as well. I think there's a place in the world for both of them, but yeah, excited to see what the future holds.
All right, now let's roll that in. Tat, what are we thinking as we go in, configuration in the larger space, right? Outside of Salesforce, as we start thinking about manufacturers and other companies out there, other industries, what does
Yeah.
configuration look like in 10, 20 years? How does that look in your mind?
Yeah, I don't know about 20 years, maybe in the next 5, 10 years, maybe. When I first started, configuration is mostly manufacturing. Oracle CPQ kind of started that way, and then the company I worked for before was, had a configurator. They are also focused on more on the manufacturing. But nowadays more and more to that, like they can handle manufacturing, but they also handling a lot of use cases that are not manufacturing. So I think in the future, you're going to see more and more configurators. Not just Dell has a configurator. You're going to see configurator kind of all over the place. I think the thing is, like with AI, I think a lot of the what we do today is probably will change. Because now basically every rule that you have in a configurator, you have to hard code it, and I think very, very soon that probably will not be necessary, because the as when people trust AI more, it'll probably become more and more prevalent, on the application of it, and then that with the rules engine, with the rules in products and all those things, there's no reason AI couldn't do it, because I think it is just so so good these days. It's just amazing in the last 5 years, really, how far it came along. So
Yeah.
I say, next 10, 5, 10, 20 years, probably, a lot of changes going to be driven off by AI. So I think that, you'll see all those things. The other thing is, like people don't trust the configurator. People don't trust the customer can use the configurator. Now more and more people say, "Hey, our rules are, once we implement it, there's no reason nobody, people can just click and configure the product, even though it's complex, if you do the configure it right." Now we're more and more seeing, B2B, commerce sites, linking to the configurator, in CPQ. I think we're going to see more and more of those things that get pushed up to the to the customer level. What the customer interfaces. I think that's going to be more and more common in 5 years. It's going to be a lot more commonplace.
So more configurators and a broader audience.
Yeah.
I just keep on hearing more commerce here. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
It does, because the commerce is, that's what people think of, like from the customer perspective, right? They don't, even when you create quote, it's commerce, right? Because that's how, that's their starting point to buy, things from you.
It's also interesting. I was just thinking about this with our team earlier. We've seen, I'm sure you all have seen this as well in manufacturing, especially, but there are a lot of companies that were extremely spreadsheet heavy, and they had their configurators internally with spreadsheets. And they kind of resisted the change, and it's almost like they're benefiting, because now configurators that are AI driven and are handling problems that are much more complex are now customer facing. So they're getting all of the wins of all of the blood, sweat, and tears of the CPQs of the past decade or 15 years. But moving forward, they kind of get a leap of technology very quickly with a much more reliable, more distributed system out there. It's pretty exciting to think about.
Yeah, 10 years ago, I went to a sales call. The client asked the Oracle sales guy to say, well, "Who's your biggest competitor?" The Oracle guy says, "Excel." That was 15 years ago. Today is still the same.
True. It's true.
Spreadsheets everywhere.
Yeah.
That's like Excel is one of the most tried and true technologies that has lasted over everything. It's reliable but not distributable, unfortunately.
The funny thing is, I'm older than you guys. So I know, like when spreadsheet first came out, people don't even trust it. People always say, "How do I know the spreadsheet actually is doing the calculation correctly?" Now people don't think about it, right?
Funny.
Probably going to be a common theme moving forward as well. Same thing could be said about AI today, and
Yeah.
we're going to take it for granted in 20 years or 5 years, maybe.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
But
It,
AI
it
in
becomes
20
second nature, by then.
Yeah, thinking about AI in 20 years is like crazy. Like it won't be tit for tat. It'll just be like AI,
AI.
AI tat, like hosting a podcast. Like why do we need humans? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. But maybe we are AI. Erik, have you ever met
It could be.
I am AI actually. I encoded myself out there.
has anybody met Erik in person?
No,
Mm,
it is interesting seeing how that's going though, the progression of technology with the AI. I mean, recording your voice, we use it for some of our demo videos and that kind of thing because it's easier to type out a script. But yeah, the increase of technology with the past 6 months, even 6 months alone, is unbelievable. We kind of, if we're kind of playing out the future, it's like, okay, well, the configurators of today are kind of input driven where you're typing something or something along those lines. But virtual guided selling is closer than we think it is. You're going to be talking
Yeah.
to AI where it's going to be a question and answer and you're not going to touch the keyboard. And after that you get to see the configured item in your meta glasses or whatever you're using. But it's kind of interesting to kind of try and future proof, but with everything moving so quickly, it's almost impossible.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy. Okay, well, Erik, thank you so much for joining us. If the listeners want to get a hold of you, how could they contact you?
They can go to renderdraw.com. They can view us on the App Exchange. And from renderdraw.com, they can book some time with us. We can have a conversation about configurators or anything manufacturing or beyond that. Looking forward to it. Thank you, Tiff. Thank
All
you, Tiff.
right. Thank you, Erik, for joining us.
Thank you so much.